Hey, good afternoon and welcome to an all-new hour of Law and Crime. I'm Vincent Hill. And joining me right now from Florida, actually, is civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. He's actually representing the Jones family. Benjamin Crump, thanks so much for joining us. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Thank you all for covering this important case.
Yeah, it is very important. And listen, I have a background in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for several years. And the problem I'm having here is when I listen to that audio of Nouman Raja, I don't hear that one key word here, police. And I think Corey Jones was in fear of his life that night because he didn't know what was going on. I'll let you take it from there, sir.
Certainly. Can you imagine being stranded on the side of the road at 3 o'clock in the morning, how vulnerable that must be? And Corey's there, and all of a sudden this strange white cargo van pulls up. A person jumps out of the car, and he has on jeans, a T-shirt, and a baseball cap. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning on the side of the road, and he confronts Corey, never identifying himself as a police officer. Corey family believes he went to his grave never knowing who this strange person was who was confronting him. And remember, Corey had a gun, but he never fired his weapon. He was running away. So that tells you the character of the person of this young man.
Right. So one of the things that struck me really troubling in that audio, we can hear Corey say, "Hold on." So to me, that tells me, yes, he did not know Nouman Raja was a police officer. Of course, Nouman Raja attempted staying your ground. But I think in this case, Mr. Crump, Corey Jones had every right in that instant, that split second, to stand his ground.
Absolutely. And you cannot get away from the elephant in the room that he was a young African-American man who had a permit to carry a gun. So why isn't the NRA standing up for him, saying, hold on, this citizen has a right to stand his ground against somebody who's confronting him who never identifies himself as a police officer? And thank God that he was on the phone with the tow truck company, and we have that recording from the company, or it would have all been as Officer Roger Nouman said, and nobody would have known.
Right, absolutely. It's a good thing that that audio recording is there, which of course has become very key in this trial. Now, I know you've been there with the family. What's their mindset right now? Are they hoping that Nouman Raja will take the stand in this case?
Well, what they're hoping for is justice. They are watching now the defense experts try to spin and change the narrative to fit his version of events. The problem is facts are very stubborn realities, and once they're out there, it's hard to try to bend untruth to make it fit the truth. And so what you see here, especially these asinine thoughts that a person with a bullet through his heart could run a football field in a half. They want you to believe the illogical to try to convince you that he should be exonerated versus just going with common sense. And then arriving based on the evidence in the law, in your common sense, that this is a person who committed a crime and should be held accountable regardless of the fact that he is a police officer.
Right. Now, you mentioned common sense, but I think what the defense is trying to do is what would a reasonable officer do if they assumed they still had an imminent threat? Because I'm sure what they're trying to say is Corey Jones was still armed. He was still a threat to the officer or the public. But you mentioned that common sense. But would it be reasonable for an officer, Nouman Raja in this case, to believe Corey Jones was still a threat? I think that's where they're going.
Well, it would be reasonable had he identified himself as a police officer.
Right.
If he did anything that his training or his policies would have instructed him to do. Then Corey Jones, who is a young man with no criminal history whatsoever, complete law-abiding citizen, nobody doubts for a second if Corey Jones believed that was a police officer given a lawful command that he would not have acquiesced. Now, that's reasonable. What's not reasonable, Mr. Hill, is to shoot and kill him and then call to your police department on your cell phone because you didn't have your uniform or your vest identifying you as a police officer, and then try to concoct the version to justify you just killing a person who was completely innocent from everything that we see at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't argue with that at all. Again, I'm former police, and I never would have gotten out of that van without my police vest on, clearly showing I'm a police officer. Now, you mentioned justice. What does the family want to see in this case? What would be justice for the family in this?
That justice would be very simple. If the shoe was on the other foot and Corey Jones would have did to Roger Nouman what he did to Corey Jones, you want equal justice, nothing less or nothing more. And we absolutely believe had Corey Jones killed Roger Nouman, he would be on trial for murder, irrespective of the fact if he was standing his ground and shot in self-defense, not knowing who this strange white man was.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had that discussion with my in-studio guest while we were on break. I want to switch gears here. Stephen Clark, of course, prosecutors have come back and said those two officers will not be charged in shooting and killing Stephen Clark. What's your take on that, sir?
It's just outrageous. Not only is Stephen Clark's family outraged, obviously many in the community there in Sacramento, California is outraged. There were protests last night. Over 80 people were arrested. We assume that the protests are going to get bigger as we get closer to March 18th, which is the one-year anniversary of the killing of Stephen Clark, who was executed in his grandmother's backyard, running away from the police officers, and all he had was a cell phone in his hand. And what's really important to know is how the DA tried to do her best to justify unnecessary, unjustifiable killing by the police. She said that it was some sort of suicide by cop. Well, that is asinine when you think he ran almost 300 yards running away from the police before he got to his grandmother's backyard.
Right.
And then, if you believe what she is saying, that he was trying to commit suicide by cop, then all the bullets should be in the front of Corey Jones. But we know the majority of the bullets came from his back. But she didn't talk about that in her hour-long press conference because it did not fit her narrative of exonerating these police officers of killing yet another unarmed black man in America. And so until we are going to have honest dialogue about this, where we have transparency plus accountability, we're never going to get to trust between communities of color and law enforcement, and it's so desperately needed right now.
Yeah, that is definitely a debate that's been going on across the country. Mr. Crump, I want to thank you so much for joining us there in Florida. I know you're very busy. I know you're wanting to go get some lunch before that case, that courtroom fills back up. So we want to thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you all on behalf of Corey Jones' family.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Again, we'll have more to come in the Nouman-Raja trial. He's on trial right now for the shooting death of Corey Jones while Nouman-Raja was a police officer. Stay tuned to the Law&Crime Network. We'll be right back.